There's a snake in our boots. But did you know there's also some adult jokes hidden in the Toy Story movies? There are more Easter eggs and side gags in these films than there are aliens in a Pizza Planet claw machine. So join ScreenRant as we dive into Andy's toy box to uncover the more mature references snuck into the Toy Story films by the Pixar powers that be. By the end, you'll be questioning how the first two movies were rated G. 1. When we first meet Sid's creepy toys during the climax of the first Toy Story, we're introduced to some Frankenstein-like combinations. Sid's created a baby-headed spider creature, a duck-headed torso attached to a spring, and a pair of legs attached to a fishing pole. It's Legs who gets the most attention, as this set of slender legs attached to a fishing pole is said to be a reference to a Lady of the Night. You know, a worker who stereotypically hangs out on street corners in the evening looking to reel customers in. Whether Sid consciously or subconsciously assembled those pieces with this meaning in mind, he has a twisted way of seeing the world. So it makes sense for his whacked-out toy concoctions to have some deeper, darker meanings behind them. The happy ending here is that Legs later appears in the Pixar short Go Fish, where she literally plays Go Fish with Woody and Buzz. 2. Famed artist Pablo Picasso may be famous for his cubist paintings and his blue period, but were you aware of his Pixar period? Art historians likely won't reference this Toy Story moment as an important part of the painter's legacy, but you can remember it as one of the more refined jokes in Pixar history. Yep, this one is less innuendo and more just an art world reference that some kids are less likely to get. Basically, Mr. Potato Head rearranges his features in a wonky and cockeyed way to resemble the artist's works. He calls himself Mr. Picasso Head. Ham doesn't get the reference, and Mr. Potato Head goes on to call him an uncultured swine, an insult that also works on multiple levels since Ham is, a piggy bank. Voiced by the dearly departed Don Rickles, Mr. Potato Head's retorts are fitting for the roast master comedian. 3. Stinky Pete, the prospector, has a moment from Toy Story 2 that seems to call out everything toxic about Hollywood that our current culture is trying to eradicate. During a post-credits scene, Stinky Pete propositions two look-alike Barbies, telling them he could get them a job in Toy Story 3. We can only assume what he means in terms of how she'll have to get this job. Stinky Pete then goes on to correct himself, saying he'll offer acting tips. We can only assume what toy Hollywood is like if Stinky Pete is allowed to get away with this Weinstein-like behavior inside or outside of his box. Since Barbie's still successful in the toy world, she didn't need any help from anyone. 4. When the toys are in the daycare center, they're given a wake-up call when Lotso warns the group to watch out for Puddles. This joke's a bit of a throwaway, lowbrow gag, but hey, maybe the littler kids, perhaps some still in daycare, wouldn't be self-aware enough to know this joke is at their expense. Obviously, Lotso is telling the group to keep a lookout for Puddles from unpotty-trained kids. 5. Lumpy the Clown appears in the Pixar short Red's Dream, and he also appears in Toy Story 2. It's in the Toy Story sequel where his extremely minor Blink and You'll Miss It cameo has some infamous undertones, however. As the toys, Rex, Ham, Mr. Potato Head, Bo Peep, Buzz, and Slink watch the TV, they flip through channels super fast. We're treated to a multitude of animated programs as the channels change, but one quick shot shows Lumpy the Clown, and in this shot, he appears to be flipping off the camera. Well, it's likely a trick of the light since he raises his hand in front of his face and both his finger and his face are the same color. Still, the flipping channels move so fast that this moment with this television set is the perfect time to hide some risque Easter eggs. 6. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head's relationship is the solid rock of the toy community in Andy's room. If they could make it last through thick and thin, then anyone can. But that doesn't mean Mr. Potato Head doesn't face temptation, especially since his marriage to the missus can often be contentious. He doesn't meet more temptation than when he faces tour guide Barbie in Toy Story 2. Upon seeing the blonde bombshell, he reacts by repeating to himself, "I'm a married spud, I'm a married spud." Hopefully, Mr. Potato Head doesn't have to repeat this every time he sees a Barbie. After all, there are a lot of Barbies in Toyland, and he should really focus on his own marriage if he has this much trouble staying faithful to his wife. Unless it's a mutual thing and Mrs. Potato Head can't contain herself whenever she comes across a G.I. Joe. 7. To add extra strain to their marriage, Mr. Potato Head jokes at his wife's expense. In Toy Story 3, Lotso gets aggressive. The pink bear yanks Mrs. Potato Head's lips right off when he thinks she's talking too much. Mr. Potato Head jumps to wife's defense by saying, "Hey, nobody takes my wife's lips except me." It's a bit insulting to his wife's independence, but it's right in line with what we've come to expect from Mr. Potato Head. He says what he thinks, he doesn't sugarcoat, and he's got an antagonistic relationship with his partner. But since Mrs. Potato Head's mouth is especially talkative, we can assume that she can dish it right back to Mr. Potato Head. 8. Most younger kids don't know the rules to poker, so they play simpler card games like War and Go Fish. There's even a Toy Story short devoted to Go Fish, involving the fish hooked legs, as we mentioned before. But there is a short side gag showing a group of toys playing an intense gambling game on a see and say. Filmed with close angles, the gambling game Buzz spies upon takes on a serious air about it. The toys play with Monopoly money and pull the see and say strings to bet where the machine's arrow is going to land. It's an ingenious homage to gambling games and casinos that are reliant on people betting on wheels landing on their numbers, whether it be roulette or Wheel of Fortune. Now, if only we could find a see and say in a casino, we'd throw down some Monopoly money of our own. 9. This one's like making a mountain out of a molehill, but hey, we can let our imagination run wild with it. In Toy Story 3, Ham says Andy should not have too much fun at college. We can only imagine what he means by this, since college isn't typically just a place for students to get their study on. It's a place for people in their late teens and early 20s to go wild. Nights of debauchery are coupled with early morning classes, and many students don't really get to sleep till graduation. Ham might not know exactly how human college works, but with all the hijinks these toys are up to, we can only imagine how he thinks college works. What do you think a toy's version of college could possibly be like? And speaking of college, how do toys get earlier forms of education, since they seem to know so much about the human world around them? 10. Buzz's wings pop out at various moments throughout the Toy Story series, both for necessary functions and comedic effect. One of the most comedic effects of Buzz Lightyear's expanding wings comes when Jessie completes a series of epic movements to help Buzz find a way out of Andy's room. The filmmakers make it clear that Buzz finds this fancy footwork attractive, probably since he often does his own series of complex death-defying stunts. To show that Jessie ignites a special feeling inside Buzz, Buzz's wings pop out. The adults in the room can assume that this wingspan expansion only means one thing. We're sure that parents didn't expect watching Toy Story to be the event that caused them to have to give their kids the talk. 11. In Toy Story 3, the Sandbox serves as a jail for wayward toys. While the Sandbox sounds like a great nickname for a literal prison, this toy jail is actually a genuine sandbox. And like any prison, this sandbox has solitary confinement. There's also references to Lincoln Logs, but these are not actual Lincoln Logs to be used as some sort of punishment where the prisoners need to build homes for others as part of their sentence. No, actually it's implied that these Lincoln Logs, well, they're doo-doo. Either way, Pixar's version of the sandbox taints everything we thought was pleasant about those childhood play places. 12. Ken may be Barbie's boyfriend in much of the in-store merchandising, and in the Toy Story series, he and Barbie share a love-at-first-sight moment. Ken's always had more of a wardrobe and more props than his action figure counterparts, and the Toy Story movies have some fun with the Ken stereotypes. Specifically, when she falls for Ken, she compliments him by saying, "Nice Ascot." Ken is one of the few male figures to sport an Ascot, and we must say, you gotta have a lot of confidence to rock one quite the way he does. However, the way Barbie says "nice Ascot" and the blushing that accompanies her phrase can only mean that the Pixar people who wrote and directed this scene intended for Barbie's phrase to be euphemism for something else. As for what that is exactly, we'll leave that to you to figure out. 13. Ken may be Barbie's number one guy, but as a man who rocks an Ascot as well as other colorful clothing items, jokes spring up every now and then about his effeminate tastes. For instance, one scene shows Ken wearing Barbie's heels. The biggest moment occurs when the toys read a letter in pink, neat and curvy handwriting, accompanied by handwritten hearts. The gang assumes it's from Barbie, but it's signed from Ken. 14. Bo Peep gets the short end of the shepherd's staff in the Toy Story franchise. This woman is the love of Woody's life, even though she doesn't get any elaborate rescue plan devoted to her. We actually don't know where she could have gone between Toy Story 2 and 3, even though Toy Story 4 showcases Woody and Peep's long-awaited reunion. Anyway, the adult moment involving Bo Peep has to do with the fact that she needs someone to watch her sheep for the night. After which, Woody gives a grin, meaning that the two of them are likely going to spend some extra time together. And it's not exactly something intended for discussion around younger ears. How intimacy between these toys works is anybody's guess, but hopefully they won't explain that to us in a sequel. All we want to see is a happy ending for this couple. Please. 15. Now, there's a good chance you missed this one because it's not in the movie. But in the first Toy Story, Woody and Buzz were to be rescued from Sid's house by none other than Barbie. She would be revealed as a tough-as-nails fighter in the vein of the Terminator Sarah Connor, but this sequence was cut for a variety of reasons. 1. That Mattel didn't give the Toy Story team the rights to use their prized doll. 2. That Woody, upon meeting Barbie, would refer to her anatomy and make a wisecrack about longing to be anatomically correct. Any attraction between Woody and Barbie would have had a negative impact on Woody's relationship with Bo Peep, and the Toy Story team got to play up comedy between Barbie and other characters in later films. So the removal of this sequence seems to have worked out for everybody. And there you have it, 15 of the more adult moments in the Toy Story series. Are there any that you think we should add to this list? Are there any other Pixar movies that have even more mature sequences than these? Let us know in the comments section below, and be sure to join ScreenRant for more Easter egg-filled videos just like this one. See you later.